welcome everyone present here today to the second day here in Naples. So today is really our last day of the Data Week 2022, and what a week. I mean, we had our launch event on the 24th of May, and even some sessions started earlier. So there were sessions already starting on, I think, the 19th of May. We will have today at the end a bit of a statistics of what has been the Data Week, but let's focus now on today. So some people who were with us yesterday left, and but we also have new people joining today, and some will come as we go. And in particular, yesterday, we were saying that this is our community event, spring community event, because then we have another one in November. And we do this with our members, with the projects, and also with our collaboration partners, right? So we had some of our collaboration partners yesterday. We had the European Commission, Fiverr was with us. But today I also want to welcome, we have people from My Data here. We have people from GaiaX. We have people from IDSA. So there are more collaboration partners that are joining us today. And for that, I really want to thank them for being here with us. I want to welcome everybody online as well. So we had good audience online yesterday. I hope we have a good audience online also today. I have to say you missed a fantastic networking dinner yesterday. Those ones who didn't come to Naples, the dinner was amazing. And for that, I really need to thank again Meditech and engineering, in particular Angelo and Dario, for really looking after us and you know, organizing something so fantastic. So thank you very much again. I will recap a bit about yesterday. So what did we do yesterday? So we had a very good welcome keynotes from organizers and some collaboration partners, for instance, the European Commission. And we learned a lot about the local ecosystem. And we learned a lot about the vision and also the ambition that exists in this region to make out of this region a data-driven, innovative region. And it's good, we are very happy that we can really go to different places in Europe and places really where this vision and ambition exist. We also had a very interesting session covering the challenges and opportunities for SMEs, very important topic for all of us. Very good session on data for trustworthy AI, a key topic for the BDBA community. And this was followed very well linked with a session where we were discussing about data and AI technologies, what are the current challenges, and also what is a bit the state of the art, what are the things we are working with at the moment, this what we call present cutting edge approaches. And we closed the day knowing a lot about our iSpaces and the Federation of iSpaces. So it was a very packed day, very, very interesting day. And today is a bit different. We will start the day first with inspired by two keynote presentations, and I will give the floor to the speakers in a moment. And then this will be followed by two sessions on data spaces. So yesterday covered AI, many other topics, but today we will have a strong focus on data spaces. And you see, oh, this goes too fast. Yeah, so we have one before the coffee break, talking about from convergence to deployment and covering aspects of governance, regulations, interoperability and standards. And a second one after the coffee break, really covering more how to go from research to market and what kind of a strategic agenda is needed to create impact in the market. Okay, and with that, no more delays. I would like to give the floor to our first keynote speaker, Alberto Sanna. Thank you for being with us. So Alberto is director of the Center for Advanced Technology in Health and Wellbeing at the San Raffaele Hospital in Milano. And I learned it's very famous and hospital. So thank you for being with us and for inspiring us. Thank you.
I don't know if it's working, okay. And I will challenge your brain early in the morning, hopefully more than an espresso from Naples, because I have many slides, but I will go very quickly because my intention here is not to make you being rational on what I'm saying, but make having impressions in your brain on on the message that I want to deliver. So be ready for a roller coaster video, let's say, challenge. So indeed, health and well-being in socio-technological ecosystem is the title that very well represents, in my perspective, what I'm going to say. And referring to the point that I just see on the screen, after deployment, you need social acceptance. You cannot stop to deployment. Social acceptance is critical, even more in the data space. So that this is what you will find here. Raffaele Hospital is an hospital which is part of a much broader group. It's called San Donato Group, which has 18 hospitals in Lombardy region. And what you see on the bird's eye view is the headquarters of San Raffaele, which is an entire city, compact city, with all features and services and infrastructures of a city combined in 300,000 square meters. So I always start with this. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. This is the definition of health in 1948. We cannot forget this. It's always, there is a struggle only to focus what industry has done, what industry is doing, what medicine is doing, but we live in too much constrained silos, and silos is not life. Silos is the way we organize our production, our knowledge, but this is not fulfilling the need of a humanistic approach in a socio-technological ecosystem. So these are the keywords that are at the baseline of our mission, which is what we do. We are engineering awareness in socio-technological ecosystem to sustain healthier, greener, and fairer individual and collective behaviors. So at the end of this presentation, you will have never heard the word big data. You will never heard the word artificial intelligence, because I'm speaking of purposes, not of tools. So this is, I will not go in any detail as I told you, but this is the three-dimensional way in which the engineering awareness methodology works. So provide function, provide emotion, and provide relationship with an individual and other than the individual. Could be another person and the environment, and so basically relationship. So all of this is personalized. I don't go in major details, and we test it in a living lab, which is our smart city living lab. And we have these three research lines, which are, let's say, three-layered and interdependent. I make it simple: hospital of the future, life of the future, and city of the future. In this place, we have every day 25,000 people coming, and this is our living lab. And we have commercial areas, 4,000 square meters commercial areas. We produce our own energy. We have an hotel, 250-room hotel. We have a congress center. We have an heliport. We have all the features that you have, all the touch points, all the live touch points, as we used to say, that you have in a city, we have here, and we have real people coming and interacting with this environment. This is why we organize this as a living lab for these research programs, which are public research, basically European Commission programs, and the private research, which is industrial research contract with industries, SMEs, and startups, and spin-offs that we produce as well. These bubbles are basically 90% of them are European projects, so you understand that they are quite dense. I will pick up some of them, and I will use some pilots to demonstrate in visual method the concept. Let's start from the hospital of the future. The complexity in a socio-technological ecosystem where at stake is the professional awareness, not the personal awareness of life. So the complexity is above all at the point of care, because all the backends, the workflow terminates here with all problems that are possibly generated in the meanwhle. And these are examples of things done. For example, the use of 5G with the Ministry of Development program for 5G deployment together with Vodafone for the ambulance of the future, connected in almost near zero latency while arriving to the emergency department, surgical robotics, cognitive robotics, and you see here some bigger pictures of these. On the left is in the 5G pilot is the first in the world 5G teleoperation done from the Vodafone center to the Raffaele hospital 11 kilometers away with near zero latency. And obviously this was not done on real patients because of the approach, but it was done in a very, very concrete and real environment, and is also a publication on this on the topic. And then you see, which is I think very relevant, important, 5G connected ambulance for the let's say for remotization of ER competencies to the ambulance while it's reaching the hospital. So this is the new building that we have built, I would say, during the COVID period. And this is a technology that has been developed, which is, I call healthcare 4.0, is a robotic, storage system that interacts automatically and charges automatically the smart trolley. And the smart trolley is assisted in mobility. So the human, the nurse, can drive it with no effort, basically. And it's a platform for me to go on automation in this mobility. So there is been no need for the system to be driven actually from the storage place to the point of care. And all is automatic for the track and trace at the item level of all medication in real time, for predictive logistics in hospitals, and for near zero error approach. So, and what's going on now, just to make some jump in the sky, it's this European project on drones. We have several scenarios that we are pursuing then, from obviously quick logistics in the smart city, aerospace, but not only the logistics apart is all the things dealing with the management of building, the management of security, because we need to have a platform with multiple purposes. So now a quick look on smarter and healthier life, as I like to call. So I really hate smart stuff. Let's go smarter. Okay, that's good. Step by step, otherwise it's not accepted. And above all, let's give the purpose of healthier, as I was saying before. That's why I put the evidence on this change in the wording. And these are key trends, social trends, that are really, we need to have an ecosystemic approach. Diet and physical activity are a problem worldwide. And we are in an aging society, and urbanization is getting stronger as never in our history of mankind. And above all in Europe. This is the European data you see there. So what we do here, we engineer individual awareness, not professional awareness. You as an individual, how you intended to act and to have impact, to have your own, let's say, step-by-step approach to healthier, greener, and fairer behavior in a complex system where you are so confused. And the more data, please, the more the confusion, if there is no translation to purpose, which is an individual purpose, is not a collective purpose. Collective purposes are not sustainable. Our individual purposes are sustainable at the individual level, that the sum of individual purposes may have a trend impact, but we need to design around the individual, not around the clusters that we are not able to profile properly. So this is the big mess of us taking decisions that we think are aware, but actually we don't have time, competencies, and understanding on the impact of our decision. So that's why we tested this in several places. For example, this is the retail area. We have a Carrefour supermarket, we have Mondadori bookstore, we have vending machines, we have bars, we have restaurants, we have insurance, we have everything you have in Main Street. And there we tested what we say, in other words, the retail of the future, okay? But driven by awareness. So in a sense is, let's say, SGR for individual rather than for company. So sustainable development goals, sorry, for individuals rather than only for companies. So you as an individual, what you can do for sustainable development goals. So what we do is very simple. This is what has been designed, I would say 20 years ago. At the time we called this virtual ego. Now say, a lot of people will say it digital twin, okay? But basically this is the database that is representing you in real time, but is holistic. It comprises of your physiological, let's say, representation, which is everything dealing with whatever physiological that at the end of the day is genomics. That's why I call genomics. Then is the behavioromics aspect. That is, for me, the automatic tracking of behaviors with the connected sensors and devices. So it's on the go. And the cultural profile, which is our mental well-being, our emotional well-being, which is an integral part, what we like and we don't like, which is the cultural profile. So genomics, behavioromics, and exposomics is my way to profile individual, and this profile is my way to engineer this, but is in the control of the individual. Is the individual, let's say, interrogating the system to understand what the system can offer in respect to its own value, personal value generation. So it's not vice versa. It's not the system pushing you information to try to sell you something with the accuracy of the irrelevant type of profiling that every company can have of you. So basically, at the end of the day, I don't put clouds in this. It's an old slide, but I think it's more interesting seeing like this than with clouds. But the point is obviously cloud and edge computing on this. And basically, it's reverse the way and having a pull mode from the individual, the individual pulling information from the ecosystem and not the ecosystem pushing information to the individual according to a profile that the ecosystem may have understood of the individual. And so I have not to say what I mean with privacy, security, and trustworthy information sources by design, not only, let's say, distribution and protection. So these are pictures on 3 pillars, for example, education, physical activity, and nutrition, so basic of lifestyles. And we started from managing medication not only in the hospital, but at home, with a smart cabinet and profiled and personalized services. In the supermarket, this is the Carrefour supermarket that we have in our living lab, where you see the logo of engineering awareness becomes green, yellow, and red, according to the type of impact that this information retrieving by product, in this case, by services, by whatever, may have on your scale of value, physiological, emotional, and social. So the, let's say, SDG mode. We tested it thoroughly in the nutritional space, also with vending machines, which are interactive vending machine, providing personalized information in a visual mode, in catering area, in cooking at home. And just I want you to focus on the fact that these vending machines were cognitive. This is a project 2011. They were cognitive, so they were looking at facial expression to understand if content delivered, assumed to be personalized, was really understood by individual, looking at the expressions that the individual was having in front of the disclosure of information. And if not, generating a different communication strategy in order to achieve, oh yes, I understand it. Oh yes, I understand it. So this is the cognitive approach in robotics, in vending machine in 2008, actually, the pilot. Then we keep this going in this environment till 2011 with 8,000 interactions with this machine per day in the let's say retail area. So a lot of dealing with personalization of nutrition, which is the value chain going from agriculture to medicine, just to be clear. It's more than one market segment. All services that are integrated from agriculture to well-being. And this project introduced, it was a security project, by the way, introduced the telenutritionist. So the human being, the expert human being into the loop to have also for doing something which was not only done by automatic system. Then on the behavioral, let's say, aspect, we introduced 8 sensors in the frame of an eyewear. And so we were able to detect and manage many other aspects like posture, temperature, humidity, UV, and so on and so forth, to provide real-time information on what was the best thing to possibly to do in this situation, and up to your individual free will to decide if to do or not. We take all of that and reconfigure for the target of children, above all with a strategy of gaming. You see, nutrition done kids' way. And then we extended this platform of education and behavior, let's say, management in a sense, to a pathology, diabetes type 1, where all these platforms were configured for a specific vertical purposes, diabetes type 1 with kids. And then we extended the approach to a generic school, let's say, way to teach all matters, but we focus on nutrition, physical activity, energy, and aspects that are critical for education of kids in society. And then this is a concept that we are on the way to spin off and discuss, and how to create these kids edutainment places from extra small scale to extra large scale to enhance the social interaction generated by this technology, sharing education and content and knowledge in a class. And from video games to arts, I'm very, very committed to arts and to bring arts back in the center of, let's say, mankind evolution. This is not actually what it is art today. It's more a market and a social market, okay? And since more than 5 years, I'm working at the convergence of neuroscience with visual arts, artificial intelligence, NFT, which is basically blockchain, is the cool way in the art domain to say about blockchain, and metaverse. And we designed a platform, and a complete platform that demonstrates this convergence. We are making several experiments, also application in the medical field, where vision may help the individual to recover. And actually, this is the only place where you find the acronym AI, artificial intelligence, because we have been invited and demonstrated our platform in the World Artificial Intelligence Festival in Cannes recently in April. So you see here our stands there, offered and invited by them to bring art into that very successful event. And I would say that our technology was well accepted, and we brought this also in the art segment. So we brought technology into the art segment. For example, recently we had the same setting basically with Milan at the Milan Image Art Fair, which is one of the biggest in Europe. And so this is the metaverse we have generated and the experience dealing with this platform. And then very quickly now, I want to have a look at our smart city from a different perspective. This is a Google view, and you see that we have a huge amount of internal parkings. So we are a mobility hub, not only of people, but also of vehicles, okay? We have a private metro, by the way, that is connecting the public system since more than 30 years to our places. So it's a multimodal, let's say, mobility hub. And you see the cogeneration plant, which is 400 meters away from our smart city, and which is a radial city, as I will call. Then we are so close to the tangentiale est, with the number of vehicles that you see are flowing on a daily basis, I would say, unfortunately, and a traditional fossil, let's say, gas station. Okay, and so I'm very interested in this because this is a linear city flowing by the side of a radial city. And you see that if you think at the energetic and mobility transformation, having 400 meters away from such a vehicle hub, it makes a lot of sense to test scale up things for policy, for technology, for marketing, and whatever. And I would say that this smart city is not driven by a mayor, is driven by a CEO. So that's why it's easier to discuss business development and innovation in such an environment. But we are not working only in our borders. This is Milano for you. It's a contract that we have with a real estate company that is building, as you see, a big smart district from scratch, from the greenfield, 3 kilometers away from us in Segrate. And we are designing all the well-being services. So we are designing a smart city reverse engineering from the well-being services that you need and you want to find in the public space. You have seen some public spaces we tested in our living lab, and on the private space and on the workplace. This is not enough because after the tangential est, we have 1 million square meters of a urban park. I believe the urban parks are underused, gigantic resources for urban ecosystems. Actually, they are empty most of the time, if you consider this in industrial terms, not only in very, let's say, peculiar way. But you see that being exposed to the green and social outdoor experience is something which is very important. I just put an article from neuroscience, but we all know about that. Although we all know about that, we don't do anything, or we don't do enough for making this happen. So we designed, you see, 16 concepts based on 5G, okay, that motivate you to get away from the city or the couch and go in the park, not only on the place where everybody goes, but using the park as a whole surface to be used. So images. Why this is important? Because all cities in the world are going greener and greener. But if you don't put content, attractors in these green areas, you will have a gigantic production relevant, let's say, gigantic urban scale production of oxygen, but you may generate very critical social conditions because you cannot have huge amount of unused spaces in a urban environment. So what we are doing in this park near us, in our, let's say, it's something that is projected. And going from the free time in the city, we go to the free time in vacation. We have this approach of well-being tourism. And we are already, this is an ongoing activity designing for a well-being sport city on a wonderful Italian lake. We are under discussion for a all-in-one smart village, starting from well-being tourism and workation. That is a new way to say workplace and vacation. So you can have a smart working instead of in the close of your home in near a nice, let's say, smart village. And you can do co-working, living lab, and blah, blah, blah. And we are working to putting infrastructures into the sea to be the sea a place where you can provide the digital services. And the first concept that we are deploying is called piste natability, which is swimmable lanes, where you have a buoy, which is basically a 5G antenna. with all the connections. And so you can do, with this infrastructure, you can do marine tech and whatever. And this is my last picture is what we are collaborating with the Fondazione Mezzogiorno for a project in this wonderful Gulf of Naples. And this is the name of the project is Green Cube. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Stay. Any questions for Alberto? Alberto, it's fine a bit, but it was very interesting. I have to say, you know, you have addressed the holistic well-being of human beings, and the community knows when we talk about holistic, we talk about from data, you know, data infrastructure to data value. We talk about holistic views in technology. It's very good that you brought up this strong point that we need to all work for the same objective of really improving well-being of human society. And so that, and also just a point, I have my past in Living Labs, so it's very good that you brought up also this point of Living Labs, because I think a strong connection between our community and the Living Lab community is needed as well. To
could you comment just one word? All of this is big data, artificial intelligence. I was not speaking of this, but to understand the amount of data that the environment is generating, and to give sense of this, you need to have help of artificial intelligence. But this is purpose, not to.
But then also so interesting, know that we were first you were presenting about more the hospital, the healthcare environment, and from the well-being perspective, you go to urban planning, you go to tourism, you go to, and it's a very an excellent approach. So I think this was good inspiration for everyone, right? So another big applause for Alberto. Thank you so much. And now we move to our next keynote speakers. Is Nevena Raczko. I hope I pronounced well your surname. And Nevena comes from IDC, senior consultant, and she's gonna talk about the European data market study that we all welcome so nicely every year. So she's gonna provide all the updated news about the market study. Thank you, Nevena.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. So yes, Anna just introduced me. I'm Nevena, and I'm part of IDC. And today I will be presenting the data market study. So that's a study that we are leading on behalf of the European Commission, so more precisely DG Connect. And my presentation will focus on three things. So basically I will explain the methodology what we are using to monitor the data market itself. Sorry, it's a bit strange to have the echo. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I will present also the results, and then I will focus to tell you where you can find all these materials. So let's start. So about the background and the goals, as you can see on the slides, here I'm presenting the main objectives. So basically we are measuring the data market. I'm sorry, I really have to get used to it. So we have indicators. So here I'm presenting the reports of the facts and figures. We ran last year in November the measurements of macro indicators related to the data economy and also the data market. And then that was from qualitative perspective. And also we were looking at the policy conclusions. There, I'm specifically focusing on all the regulations. So obviously I heard all of you talking about, you know, the Digital Act, the Data Governance Act, also the DMA and the DSA. So we are trying to put together to understand how all this is connected. And then we are also focusing to understand and analyze the different topics. So for instance, we have stories that we published. So we have a story about data construction, we have a story about the data for green, and we also have a story about the data skills gap. So we had a webinar as part of the Data Week, I think 2 weeks ago, more or less, where we presented the specific results of that study. And we have an upcoming study on data sovereignty. And I think that's a very interesting one, because there we interviewed different companies. So for instance, we also talked to Microsoft, and we tried to understand their point of view on this new way of where Europe is trying to arrive. And we are going to publish it in few weeks, so just right before the summertime. And then the other objective, obviously, is to map the data economy and all the stakeholders that are included there. So we published an EU data landscape. So on this slide, you can see a quite complex conceptual framework that we developed. I don't want to go into details. However, I want to focus on the indicators. So these are macro indicators. So we have the data professionals, we have the data companies, the revenues of the data companies, the data market, data economy, and the data skills gap. So these are raw data that you can find. This is something how the monitoring tool is running. And we are looking at these 6 indicators. We are covering all the EU 27 member states, plus also Switzerland, and obviously since Brexit, we are also measuring the UK separately. And we also have the rest of the the European economic area. And we have also international indicators. I think that's something that, that is quite unique in our study, because we also measure the data economy and the data market in Brazil, Japan, obviously US, and also China. So that's something that if you are checking the study that we have done in the past and also the new one, you can read these numbers. And today I thought to focus only on the data market and the data economy. And I heard many of you speaking about the data economy and also the data market, but sometimes I thinking it's not clear, what's the difference between these two expressions. So I just put this from the study. It's quite simple, I think. So obviously, when we look at the data market, we define it as the marketplace where digital data is exchanged as products or services as a result of the elaboration of raw data. And it's very important to mention that imports are included, but the exports of the European data companies are not part of this data market. And then the data economy. So there we measure, now it's much better. So there we measure the overall impacts of the data market and on the economy as a whole. And now I will show some numbers so you will see how all of this is connected. And there we consider the value and the wealth generated in the economy. And before going to the real numbers, we have developed 3 scenarios for the European data economy. And we are starting from 2025. That's our starting point. And then we are trying to tell the future. So we are trying to understand how the data economy will look like in 2030. So we have developed these 3 scenarios. We have the baseline scenario, the high growth scenario, and the challenge scenario. So obviously under the baseline scenario, we mean when the market has a very normal growth, the trends are going the way they're supposed to go, and all the framework conditions are given. So for instance, if we look at the regulatory side, here we assume that the regulation will follow the way as they are, they will be implanted, and maybe there will be some changes, but we will all follow the book, so to say. And then the high growth scenario is more extremely, it's on one side, it's a bit more extreme, very positive one. So in this case, we consider that the data market enters a faster growth trajectory thanks to the favorable market conditions. And then on the other side, a bit more pessimist view, so to say, we have the challenge scenario. So in this case, the data market grows more slowly comparing to the baseline scenario. And of course, the framework conditions are not in place. And I think the challenge scenario is something for you to remember, because of course, when we speak about COVID, that was the scenario that we considered. And when we could test the monitoring to itself, if our assumptions were correct or not, because here we consider all the shocks that are influencing the market. So the wildcards and the black swans. So besides COVID, obviously nowadays we have the war in Ukraine that may have an impact also on the data economy itself. So now the numbers. So these are the results of the latest measurements that we had. So on this slide, you can see the numbers from 2020 to 2021. So this is something from last year. And then, as I just explained, we had the baseline scenario, the high growth, and the challenge. And we can see that the growth rate for the data market was around 5%, which is quite good. However, then if you look at all the other scenarios, you will see, for instance, also with the high growth, that there is still growth, but the pace is slowing down when we arrive to 2030. And just remember the number of 64 billion euros, because that's the value of the European data market in 2021. And if we look at the numbers related to the data economy, so here again, I put exactly the same structure. So we have 2021, the baseline, high growth, and challenge scenario. And you can see how big was the data market and how it's correlated now with the data economy, that in 2021 arrived to have a value of 443 billion euros with the same growth rate. And again, the scenarios are following the same path as in the previous case. So now the key takeaways of the study. So what we could see, first we could see that there was this renewed post-COVID growth. So of course there were different waves. So in 2019 there was the growth rate. Then in 2020 when the COVID started, it went down, and at the end of 2021 we could already see that the market was getting back to its shape with some sort of uncertainties. Plus, all of this led to a more complex and fast changing scenarios. So we understood that we have to revise the scenarios. The impacts that are happening all over the world. So for instance, also we just think about inflation, the growing energy prices, etc. We had to rebuild them, and that's something that we are planning to do in the fall. Plus, there is a new mainstream status related to the data. Obviously, in this case, we talk about data monetization. So that's a unique feature in our study, because for the first time since the launch of the study, we included numbers on data monetization. That was a part that was quite challenging because currently there is not much out there related to how to measure data monetization. So our experts put together a methodology, and we published this in this last study. And then, of course, we can see that Europe is leading the way in digital regulation. Of course, we could see that already with GDPR, but now with this huge package of the regulatory initiatives from the von der Leyen Commission is something that all the world is trying to follow and understand where we are trying to arrive. And lastly, there is a new international assertiveness from the EU to understand, to step up its game, and be a relative partner also for the US. So for instance, there's the Tech and Trade Council that was set up recently, and also its relation towards China. And one of my last slides is an update that we did recently in May, because of course we had our measurements before the war. So there were some signs, obviously, last year about the escalation of the war itself, but obviously in February it shocked the world as well as of the market itself. And as you know well, that COVID had impact on the world and on the economy, but when it comes to data and digital transformation, it accelerated the digital transformation, and the markets with COVID were less hit. With the war, that's a bigger question. So as you can see, comparing to the numbers in October and in May, for instance, with the baseline scenario, what we can see that there is only 0.2% difference now. But to tell long term what will be the impact of the war on this growth rate, we thought that it would make sense to have a study in October that will really focus on this. We will go into details. We will look at all the scenarios. And also here you can see from the challenge scenario that we didn't change the numbers, because indeed that's the scenario that is taking into account this kind of breaks in the market. So this was I think one of my last slides. We have an interactive monitoring tool, so maybe it can be useful to all of you for your research or any study that you are currently working on or you will work in the future. So all the data that I just mentioned is available online. You can select by member states. Also, there are 12 different industry sectors that you can check. It's an interactive tool that you can access. So where you can find all this information. So we have the datalandscape.eu website that includes all the results of the first and the second edition of the study. Then I would really recommend you to follow us on Twitter, because that's where we always share the latest when we publish the studies. So you can get notified there. And I also included the website of the Commission, because the latest studies are published there. And I think yesterday there was a speaker who was really saying how hard it is to transfer data from one place to another. So that's the case also with our website, unfortunately, because we have the data landscape website that we are trying to renew. And that's why currently the study is still on the Commission side. So I will finish here. Thank you so much for your attention. I left my email address and also the email address of my colleague, who is the brain behind the study itself. So in case you have any questions or there is a specific country that you would like to get more information about, that's where you can contact us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nevena. Stay a bit. So any questions for Nevena? Yeah, can you please help us with the microphone?
Hi, Mark.
Until the mic shows up. There was a presentation, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something, where Richard referred to this data.
Yes.
And he made the point in that presentation that I think the number is 60 billion euros is the number for today, roughly. And he said that, and as a percentage, it was some percentage. Then he said, if the number in the United States is like 3 times the percentage of GDP, much bigger number, not only in terms of monetary value, but also in terms of as a percent of GDP. Do you have any insights from the study about what, I mean, the reasons why it's as low as it is in the EU compared to the United States, what the mechanisms might be? Is that discussed in your study at all? And then the other question is, of that 60 billion, can you make some simple statements about it's mostly engineering service firms, or it's mostly people selling real estate listings, or, you know, advertising data? You know, what makes up that 60 billion euros? What are the are there any big components to that that you know of?
Okay. Yes, so we are looking at the US, and obviously the big differences that are quite well known, that in the EU there are some countries that are leading the way. So, okay, for instance, UK has the highest numbers, but it's not part of the EU anymore. So that's why also the number has changed since Brexit. And then if we look, the next ones are Germany and France, Spain. Italy is also an interesting case because it's growing quite fast, but still needs to catch up. But when we look at the US, of course, it's something that we are behind. So we need, you know, we have now the regulations, we have the different measurements. The Next Generation EU is a big boost. So of course, all the research programs, so we speak about the Digital Europe program, the Horizon Europe as well. So that's something that we see that will have a big impact, and we will have some sort of growth. But yeah, I think there is still a lot of work to be done on this front. And regarding your second questions on the sectors, I'm not sure if we look at the sectors when it comes to the US, because the indicators are a bit limited. So we have around 4 macro indicators that are really trying to assess the value of the market there. So I'm not sure if I can answer fully, but as in the EU, the general sectors that are leading, so for instance, finance, we see in the EU also manufacturing that is catching up. So I don't know if I answered you. Okay.
Thank you, Nevena. Any additional question? Okay, so some comments just from my side. First, really interested. No, just stay a bit. Just a bit. Interesting to see also how the different global events affect the data economy. They affect the economy in general, but you clearly said we were waiting for this version of the market study because of the post-COVID to see what happened, and you said no, accelerated. Now the war is the other way around. It's interesting to see. Also, I have to say, for those who have been with BDBA for longer, we have been using the macroeconomic figures of this study for the big data value partnership. So it has been our reference. And of course, it's very difficult to link pre-competitive programs with market, you know, because if there is any consequence, it happens normally years after. But still we managed, thanks also to the work of IDC, to link many activities done by the projects from a quantitative and qualitative perspective to these KPIs. It's something that we did with Gabriela and you colleagues before. So I hope we can keep working also with all this macroeconomic. Also, we have the community here that should take Europe to the high growth scenario, no? So we should have the responsibility here I mean, they work with different scenarios, and many of the actions that we are discussing here should help to go to a high growth scenario, should be our purpose. And with this, Nevena, just to thank you and
Thank
to
you.
say, you also talked about we are leading the digital regulation, and that links us with the next session. Big applause for you. Thank you.